I grabbed it. I managed to go and grab my wallet. So
You know, this probably won't help you right now, but some of us, meaning me, I actually
damn it.
memorized my credit card information because I got tired of having to constantly get up and go across the room or wherever it was trying to find my wallet. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. It's fine.
Do you know what? I feel like this saves me money because there are many times where I'm so lazy that instead of
You're like,
running
I
to
don't
grab
need it
my credit
anyway.
card, I'm just like, well, whatever. I guess
It's fine.
yeah. So, but you know what? It just sent me. God, it told me, and while I was away, it said I'm back here at the verification page. So I'm not.
Did
Oh
you
wait,
did
no,
you
there we go.
verify your email?
So I did, but now I'm
Tech is
in
so
again.
fun.
So I'm going to. So, but just to let everybody. Oh, okay. So this is all here. I can continue to payment now. So just so everyone is aware, I'm just signing up for Cross Bible here,
Yay.
which is something everyone should do. So while I input my credit card information here, Vish can start the show by
Okay. I all
mean
you
people
said was we're gonna have Steven on to talk about, Cross Bible and maybe this
Wait, so
video,
have you
and
been
that was
briefed?
it.
Have you been briefed on the topic that we're going to be discussing?
I sent her a
No.
copy of the video and a link to the article, but
Did you
that's
really? Did you
I
really send me a clip of this
I
video?
did. I did. It's go look. I'm looking at it
Man,
right
I
now.
don't watch this.
Yeah,
It's
but it's
no
good. But
no
we get
on
we get your hot take on
on
this.
Discord, right? It's
Well,
there. I
yes,
said
I
for the
know,
show
but
Friday,
I
we're
don't
looking at
watch
this
that stuff.
video. It's
Okay.
based on this paper. So I sent that stuff. So but you know what? Why don't while I'm finished filling this in, everybody welcome to the show, by the way. Welcome to my channel. I'm Kipp Davis. I'm a biblical scholar and a specialist in early Judaism and the Dead Sea Scrolls. Stephen Nelson is an old friend who runs the online platform Cross Bible, and we ran into each other at SBL, which was great. And while we were there, we said, yeah, let's do something in the near future. So here we are.
This is my debut on your channel.
Oh my God, I think that's true. That's wild. Okay, so there's a place for me. Is there a place for me to insert my code?
Yep. It should be underneath on the left-hand side. Don't show your screen though, because it
Oh,
needs to be
I see
private.
it. No, I'm not showing my screen to anyone.
Yeah,
because,
so exclusive offer, because we're on the heels of SBL. Originally, my intention was for the promo code SBL 2025 to be given exclusively to the people who made it all the way to my booth to see my demo at SBL. And I have decided to go ahead and extend that to your audience. So if anybody wants to test drive Cross Bible for free for 1 month and have all the bells and whistles, use the promo code SBL 2025, and that will be available to the end of the year. So if you're catching this at any point in 2025, you can use that promo code for a free month, and that gives you access to the premium features that we've recently released that we're still working through. And just so everyone knows, I dropped on my chat a link to Disciple Dojo's video that features that from SBL. So he filmed my demo at SBL, and that video now has about 5,000 views and has resulted in hundreds of people.
Good.
Hundreds of people have signed up for free, and a handful of them have subscribed for the premium features. And this is basically, the floodgates are now open. So everyone's coming in now. Everybody's using the platform. I'm getting a lot of great feedback, positive and negative feedback from people who are like, hey, this doesn't work, and they're reporting bugs, which we are fixing very actively. So I will drop a link to Discord in the chat, and I'm imploring everyone, if you are using Cross Bible and you come across anything that doesn't work the way you expect it, just hop into Discord and get into the bug report channel, and please just tell me, even if it's really, really brief, like, hey, this button doesn't work, shoot me a screenshot. I'll drop the link right now in the chat for the Cross Bible Discord. This is not like, oh, come hang out on Discord just because. This is like, I need your help on the Cross Bible Discord to just let us know when things are not working properly, because we now have a lot of like a lot is on the line for me personally right now to ensure that everybody has a good experience on the platform and everything works properly.
That's all. Yeah.
So,
no,
yeah.
that's
Evan
excellent.
is asking, what if they want to report a mammal instead of a bug? I feel like this is important.
I need to open up
upfront.
a mammal report channel on Discord. So this has been like, look, I started Cross Bible in 2022. 2023 was the whole, we were doing research and development. I spent 10 years on the prototype, and then we released it in 2024 as the 100% free version without any premium features. And we only a few months ago released like the note taking and highlighting and bookmark capabilities. We integrated a textual apparatus. We integrated the BDB lexicon for the Hebrew and Thayer's lexicon for the Greek.
Nice.
And we just right before SBL. So it's like, if you're coming in now, you're coming in at the ground level, and everybody that's participating on Discord and recommending features. Somebody recommended a great feature recently, which is a reset button. So the thing about Cross Bible is, if you show your screen once you're set up, Kipp, you can stack all these translations on top of each other. And somebody was like, why don't you just put a reset button to like wipe the slate clean and go back to your preferred translation? And like, done.
Yeah.
We that's
Very
in the
good.
pipeline. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I think we're gonna take a look now that I'm signed up, and you can walk me through some things. But I'm gonna say hi to some people in the chat first. Good to see John here. Helena needs help. Is here probably to lecture us on Greek priority, which is
Greek
fine.
priority. It's
fine.
its own
Yeah,
Greek
it's fine.
parent.
Right. Jennifer Silvas, thank you for the super chat. Here for a good time, not a long time. I hope this live gets posted right away. Attending a UW Classics talk in 30 minutes. Yeah, it'll be available like that. Or you could just, watch it in the middle of your talk. Thank you, Lil, for the treats for Dagon. Good to see Holly and Chenk and Triceratops and Becca and Kinetic 44 and Brandon, who I don't see anymore because Acadian class has ended. But good to see you here. Alias Fake Name is here. SF Cameron 1. I'm not sure. Maybe that's one of yours? That could be. The Weird CKA, Evan, is here. This is one of yours, I think. Asa Swizzo, an atheist and a Christian speaking on the Bible. Glad to see it. Not sure which one of those I am, but I'm always happy to talk about the Bible with anybody, almost anybody. Eric Bess is here. Simone, it's good to see you. We were a little bit late because I was trying to figure out how to set up my account for Cross Bible. So I will certainly take the hit for that. Archival Blob. Oh yes. By the way, Colton Honeycutt is here. Good to see you. He found out about Cross Bible from Disciple Dojo.
I think we're hitting 5,000 views on that video.
That's awesome. So
this is another thing we're probably going to have to keep telling people this repeatedly over the next 2 months, is that StreamYard has a default setting for both vertical and horizontal streaming, and Kipp, for the time being, has elected to stream in both formats, which I hate, but that's okay because I don't have to look at the vertical screen.
You don't have to, and it shouldn't have any effect on you whatsoever. So you should feel
I just hide the panel and pretend it doesn't exist.
Ambivalent about it. But if you are disappointed or frustrated with your current view, whether vertical or landscape, there is a link in the description for you to switch. You can just go and watch it in the other format, or you could go watch it on Steven's channel, which is just as fun, even more fun, actually. If you go watch,
I got
watch
12
over
people
there.
on my channel. That's 2 more than I usually get.
Wow, that's brilliant. Awesome. So yeah, no, it's good stuff. All right. So I guess I'll just share my screen here, right?
Yeah.
So here I am. I am at. Better make sure that's okay.
Moment of
No, why did it
truth.
go back to that? It went back to the billing page. Return to Cross Bible. There we go. Before, okay. Now I will share my screen.
All right.
Okay. That one. There. All right. So I'm signed in over here. Do I go to dashboard?
I don't think you have it on the stage.
Oh, you're right. I don't, because it's me. There. So I went to my dashboard.
Yeah, you don't need to go to your dashboard. You don't have anything in your dashboard. So the dashboard is great. That's where you're going to have like basically the air traffic control view of your notes, your highlights, and your bookmarks, right? Which I'm sure you'll eventually take. So if you go to the Bible reader from there in the header, right? We have a new nav bar. The first thing you should do is click on the little cap and gown icon in the top right to open up your tools.
Oh, nice.
Go to the preferences in the top right tab. So you see that there's a little, go to your preferences, your settings. There you go.
My settings.
And then in your settings, go ahead and pick your preferred Bible version, which for you will probably be the Westminster Leningrad Codex, unless you want to in English Bible by default and then add in the WLC later. But that would be the first thing I would do in your shoes.
Yeah. Available Bible versions.
Yeah,
what is that?
And just so everybody knows, the StreamYard does not actually capture the drop-down menu. So when you click on something and it opens up, and like you don't people on watching
you're not
don't
seeing
see
the things that. Okay, yeah, got it.
So now your preferred version that's going to always open up by default when you're logged in is going to be the Leningrad Codex, and then go up a little bit. So yeah, preferred Bible versions. If you open that up again, you're going to see a whole menu. Okay. Actually, people do see the menu on StreamYard. So just select the Bible versions you want to be available. So you don't need like Korean and Russian and Ukrainian and Japanese and like you just need you probably want some Septuagint versions.
Oh, nice. I can see that. Yeah.
You want the JPS Tanakh 1917 version. Where I would really love to get the new JPS Tanakh, but that's the public domain version. If you want to have the KJV in the mix, you could keep it. You can grab. Nestle get NRSV.
NRSV.
So basically, you just build your own custom Bible menu.
Yeah. Oh, look, we've got the SBL Greek New Testament.
Yep.
Nice. Cool. Wow. The Textus Receptus. Boy.
Because one thing that annoys me on a lot of other Bible platforms is like if you're looking at a menu and if they have like 1,000 Bibles, you got to like type ahead and scroll forever. And this one is this is a nice little customization.
Very nice. I like that. That's cool.
And you can always change it later, so you don't need to finalize the list now.
All right.
For the categories, those are for your bookmarks and your highlights. There are a couple of little warning messages that pop up that we're going to get rid of. It's forcing you to set some of those values where I'm going to change that. So go down a little bit more. Go ahead and select in your Bible selector menu. Go from that. Change that from the NIV to the Leningrad Codex.
Bible selector menu. Am I still scrolling down?
No. In the top middle, where it says New International Version, above your Bible in the Bible reader.
Why am I not seeing this? Oh, here. There.
Yeah. Change that to
over here.
Go ahead and let's bring up the Hebrew for Genesis 1:1. So it's at the bottom.
There we go.
Yeah, WLC. And then what you can do, go back
I can increase my font size, right?
Yeah, go to the side panel. Go to the side panel and then scroll down.
Okay.
Just scroll down. So here you can increase your font size. So hit your like that big A and until it's the size that you want. And also, you can change the font to one. I don't think any of my current fonts currently support Nikud very cleanly, but they will. So eventually, we will add a font there that will finally earn me, Kipp Davis seal of approval.
Respect. Oh.
So for now, I think E.B. Garamond probably
literally just do it with Unicode. I'm crying. I'm crying.
About what? What are you crying about?
You can literally type Hebrew using Nikud with just regular Unicode. You don't need a special font for it.
No,
Well, the
of
Nakud
course.
is
But the
there.
link-
It's just
But the point is the important point here, Vish, is that these fonts are ugly. That's it.
yeah, the
That's
Nakud displays. It's just the SBL
yes.
font that we previously had. Kip really liked that, and
I
it was
do.
so
I
heavy.
do.
We had to drop it. So we're working on getting a new one that's going to be aesthetically pleasing and lightweight. And so if you go down to themes, right now you're just in the standard dark mode theme, but you
Yeah.
can try other themes. So like
Like a
just click-
sepia.
Yeah,
theme.
so the sepia,
Oh, it doesn't
go
look
into the
very good,
top.
though.
Yes, because you're in dark mode. We're gonna tweak this.
Oh.
You see where it says KD in the top right? Your
Yep.
little so
Yep.
next to that, next to
There.
it, yeah, click there, and then
I
select
can go
light.
light. Oh,
So
yeah, that looks
yeah,
pretty.
and so
Nice.
from the light mode, you can click on all of those themes and just pick one that you like. You can always change it later. Yeah, you can
Cool.
get that.
Yeah.
That there's a dark mode theme.
Ooh,
That's
did
nice
that
and thick.
interesting. That one just emboldens
Yeah.
the text.
Emboldens the text.
Cool.
And then there's a
All
and then there's a
right.
dark mode theme too that you might prefer. I don't know if you
So
are like an anti-glare person. That's also pretty slick.
I do most things in dark mode now, but
So this is
but I don't,
probably your
I don't
best
mind the
bet.
glare. Yeah.
Okay. So we could stick
Cool.
with this. And then
All
so click on the Bible with the little cross that's like a plus sign in the top middle.
I just
The
saw
top
that.
the
There
top
it
middle
is.
of your screen. There. So
Okay.
here you could add
Ta-da!
alongside the Masoretic text, you can add the Septuagint. You could add like Ralph's.
Wow. How many can I add here? I can
Up to
add.
4.
Can I close my settings window?
So scroll up in your settings window. So go and put your cursor in the middle of your settings, scroll up. Now on the top right there's an X, you can click to close that.
Yep.
Or you can
Perfect.
click there you go.
All right.
And then you can add a third one. And then what I would do, change that to Greek.
Let's pull up Rolf's, shall we? Okay.
And then what I would also do is next to where you see Genesis 1, the first button to the right of the number 1 pivots.
Switch between version comparison and verse views?
Yes, click that.
So click that one.
So personally, I like it to be laid out this way. However,
wow.
the highlight state there is too bright. So what I would do now is turn dark mode on. You remember where you found that?
Yep.
Yeah, turn it to dark.
There we go.
Boom.
Yep.
Now you're good. So this is
Beautiful.
saved
Oh,
now.
look
So
at
every time you log in, it's going to look like this. So and this is available for free. If you register for free, everything we've just done, you get to do for free. We cover the cost of this particular functionality. The extra stuff we haven't even
Fantastic.
scratched the surface. The premium stuff we haven't seen.
That's so great. Cool.
And you can highlight, you can bookmark, and you can annotate any of these verses. And it will be saved to your account, and that's private. Nobody else sees that. That's your stuff.
That's awesome. So very cool.
And we do have word
would,
search. Like you can search for words. We just don't have lemmatization. So if you hit that search panel,
okay.
if you hit the search panel and you say like
that one,
create, you can, you should be able to unlock advanced search. I'm going to take a screenshot of that. But that will give you basic search capabilities, so you can search for things like created. Hit return to cross Bible.
Oh, whoops.
Hit the refresh button.
There we go. Phew.
There.
Okay. All right. So I'm going back to.
So this is an example. If anyone on the stream uses Cross Bible and runs into little things like that, it's just because it's really brand new. Please join Discord. I beg you. Like, please join Discord and just give me a heads up. Even if it's like, hey, I hit the back button, like even if it's not specific, it'll at least give me a clue that I can go investigate and just fix all of this stuff. Like we're going to be doing this for the rest of December. It's just fixing little bugs like this.
Is there a way I can enter my advanced search now?
You should. This is so because you're subscribed, that should be
Yeah.
unlocked. The fact that it's not locked, the fact that it's locked is a problem I need to jump on.
Okay. All right. But can I do so? Can I just do on the free version? You just do English searches, or can you do other language searches at this point?
You can do other language searches, but it's only going to find, like, if you look for the word goy in Hebrew, it's not going to give you goy. Well, actually, probably will give you goyim. If you look for goyim, you're not going to get goy, right? Like, there's no lemmatization yet, so it's not going to give you every single form of the word.
Oh, okay.
It's going to give you going to give you exactly what you're looking for, the string.
All
the
right,
text
so
string.
it's string searches basically at this point, which
For
are
phase one.
better than nothing, right?
Yeah, this is phase 1.
Let's do. I assume it's Unicode.
Yeah.
What happened? Okay, so whoops. There we go. I'm gonna start over.
Yeah, it should be indexing.
Let's do because we were talking about this word just and then it says 0 items found. I hit return, but it doesn't.
It might not be indexing the Leningrad Codex, so you might not be getting Hebrew.
All right. Okay. But that's coming. Is that what's in the advanced search feature?
The advanced search feature will let you narrow the search criteria to specific versions. So you can search within the King James 1719 or within the Leningrad Codex, and that's probably what you need to do to get the Hebrew search function to work.
Okay. Yeah,
Just you should have unlocked it, and I have to, after the stream, I'll investigate why it's not unlocked.
All right. Cool.
So that's a basic overview. We didn't touch any of the premium stuff, but I think we've probably, done enough for now just to give people a basic overview.
That's awesome. So everybody's got a promo code. Everybody should go sign up.
SBL 2025.
SBL 2025. And how long is that going to be valid for?
That's valid until the end of the year for a 30. Yeah, there you go. For a 30-day free trial, and then after that, it will begin to charge whatever tier you sign up for. So there's a $5 a month tier that unlocks almost everything. If you want to support on a higher level, we have $10 and $20. I'm working on a Greek module that I think is going to be available on the $20 tier. That would just be if you want to really support us. For now, $5 is really the basic plan. Yeah, and Discord is for anybody to just share their feedback, ideas, feature suggestions, bug reports, or just geek out on anything you want.
Awesome. That's cool. Sweet. So we're here to talk about your work at Cross Bible, but we're also here to talk about a video that you brought to my attention some time ago, several months ago. But we never got around to setting anything up until just recently. So how do we set this up? This is let me say this. I'm a Dead Sea Scrolls scholar. I wrote my PhD dissertation in the traditions of Jeremiah in the Second Temple period. A strong component of my dissertation was defining these boundaries between what constitutes scripture versus what constitutes this thing called rewritten Bible versus what constitutes a pesher. Basically, a lot of genre classification towards understanding what is an authoritative text in the 1st century BCE, the 2nd century BCE, the 1st century CE at the time of Jesus. This is a pressing issue for a lot of people. A lot of people get very invested in this idea of understanding what an authoritative text is, what that means, and then from that point forward, they start getting kind of funny about their preferred text types. Something that we see with some frequency. I was reminded very strongly of this, and I kept raising the question when a lot of this stuff with Wes Huff went down this time last year, when he went on the Joe Rogan podcast and talked about 1Q Isaiah A
word for word.
Word for word.
Wow.
Word for
For
word.
word.
Wow, you got it.
Wow.
So the comparison was consistently being made
Wow.
between 1Q Isaiah A and the Masoretic text,
Yeah.
as if this is the gold standard from which 1Q Isaiah A departs. This is a consistent feature within a lot of text critical study of the Hebrew Bible. I feel like we've sort of marched away from that in large numbers in scholarship over the course of the last several decades, but there is still this movement towards prioritizing the Masoretic text.
Yeah, I think it's abbreviated as the MT only paradigm. I think I know Ian Young uses that term, or just MT priority. That's like this unreasonable preference across the board for the Masoretic text, from a text critical perspective, like with respect to what did the original text say, or the Ausgangs text, or whatever you call it. The earliest we can go back in the textual transmission tradition.
Text.
Yeah, what reading is more quote unquote reliable? The urtext, yeah.
So it's So this is this is sort of what we're talking about today. We're talking about the shape of the biblical text at the earliest stage that we have it. I also think that's important to point out. And the other thing here too, and it's something that that we'll bring up in the video as we watch it, is this question of the relationship between the Masoretic text, any manuscript, really any text type of the Bible in this late Second Temple period, when we have manuscript evidence for this kind of stuff, and even just the concept. That's something that just it literally it causes me to twitch every time I hear it in the video. The presenter here, Andrew Case from Aleph Beth, basically, and I have to say this too. He does a very, very nice visual presentation of Peter Gentry's article that was published in Southwestern Baptist Theological Journal, or Journal of Theology. I can never remember which one it is. But one thing that comes out fairly consistently is he makes this distinction between what's Bible and not Bible. In his evaluation of texts and manuscripts, one of the things that I did through the course of my entire PhD program, one of the things that I did in the course of both of my postdoctorates, was working pretty carefully through how do we understand the shape of the text on the basis of the manuscript evidence that we have. So I don't know. Do you want to say anything about this, or do you want to just dive into the video?
I'm interested. I just want to make sure I don't over talk, because I tend to do that. Vish, is there anything you want to add before I give a little intro?
I mean, about textual and manuscript traditions in general.
Yeah, or just the Masoretic text only paradigm, because I think obviously from a Jewish perspective, the MT only paradigm is a matter of preference and faith. It's like that is the Hebrew Bible, par excellence.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, as with anything Jewish, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of mainstream, Jewish yeshivas and schools that, they teach the documentary and supplementary and all the other hypotheses. They discuss manuscript variations. They study them academically, or they integrate, the works of scholarship. So when people are doing this, you kind of choose which manuscripts that are the most relevant to you. And like, there obviously is a preference for the Masoretic text because it's so, it's very complete. You know, there's not really this idea of, oh, we have large chunks missing, but we had to go stitch them in from other places, you know. So in that sense, it gets a lot of preferential treatment, which I can understand. But I mean, I've had conversations with, you know, my rabbi that's like, hey, what if we started using one of the Dead Sea Scrolls variations of the Psalms? Wouldn't that be cool? You know, and it's not considered like heretical, or it's not considered, I guess, a threat in a lot of evangelical circles, especially. I've noticed that people invest a lot in the Masoretic text because there's this idea that, well, if this came down to us ostensibly preserved in the way that it was originally written, so the theology goes, then that undergirds their other theology, that, well, then my interpretations are original or intended from the text, or the systems that we set up, or the doctrines that we've created, they're not actually just us riffing on stuff or developing them as we go. These were intended by the text. These were intended by the author because, you know, this remains unchanged. So I think that really deprives them of a lot of nuance and richness that their traditions could benefit from by going, hey, this is the one that survived. This isn't necessarily the original for whatever value you could place on original with an anthology text.
What's been your experience with the stigma against the Septuagint? Any?
It's just because it's in another language, so you're going to lose a lot of, you're going to lose puns. First of all, there's a lot of wordplay going on in the Hebrew Bible, and you miss that when you start taking it out of the language that it was written in. So I think, first of all, you miss that, and you miss a lot of over and undertones that come with someone communicating ideas in their original language. If I tell you in English, give me a booty call versus a butt dial, semantically, those really mean the same thing, but they have completely different context. They have two completely different intended like meanings. So there's some of that you're missing, but it's just that we do 90% of our stuff in Hebrew, so it doesn't really make sense for us to spend a lot of time on a Greek text. However, there's clearly earlier readings or variant readings that are preserved in Greek manuscripts, so it's like, yeah, cool, they're there. Let's use them.
So what we're about to see is basically an argument against what you just said. So it's saying basically that these variant readings that are behind the Greek,
okay,
that like there's some nuance to it. You know, I don't want to spoil it, but you know, in my experience, I have to disclose my biases, which I think I probably share with you guys to some extent. That, you know, I brought a few books as examples. So like these two Bibles for me. So the Jewish Study Bible, Oxford Jewish Study Bible, and Dead Sea Scrolls Bibles, right? Like really, really valuable resources for me to start to observing.
Big boys.
Yeah, I mean, I think the JPS Tanakh is what's in the middle of this one, and then the footnotes and marginal notes are from the Oxford, committee, and they restore a lot of readings based, even though they're commenting on a translation of the Masoretic text, they use the Septuagint in places where they believe it's more reliable, and of course the Dead Sea Scrolls, and you see variant readings here. And the only, as somebody who's not a scholar who wanted to sort of make sense of what's going on here, I relied very, very heavily on Emanuel Tov's.
Oh yeah,
I think we all do.
Yeah, textual criticism of the Hebrew Bible. I mean, dog-eared.
Yeah, you got it marked up. It's highlighted.
Like, I mean, cover to cover 3 times, like it's just reference material, text critical use of the Septuagint. I mean, I just became an Emanuel Tov fanboy,
right?
Like, to the like. I mean, it just I don't know, there would be no cross Bible without that.
That's brilliant.
Did you get to hear him speak at SBL at all, or were you too busy at the booth?
I jumped on him at SBL, so like I saw him walking through the hallway, and I had my suitcases and all my stuff getting ready to go set up, and
you just dropped them. And
I
ran
on him. I pounced on him. and told him
Love
like
it.
and told him
Good.
I'm gonna be like, I told him about Cross Bible. I was like, here's a
Mm.
bookmark, and here's a brochure, and
Senpai, notice me.
yeah, and he just like slowed
Good.
me down, and he was just like, okay, so what is this thing you're like in the middle of the hallway? And I
Yeah.
told him, and so I told
Yeah.
him that I'm gonna be. I want to incorporate the CCAT data from the University of Pennsylvania into Cross Bible so that the Septuagint is represented there with his work. He immediately like, let's go sit down. So he sat me
That's so
down,
All
and
right.
I gave him my poster as a gift. He then came to my booth and like immediately sat in my chair and like was just like royalty like to me. I was just like
Wow.
I was
Yeah.
at his feet.
Listen,
You received his blessing.
I mean, that's got to be worth it just on its own.
Oh, yeah.
The price,
Mhm.
the price. I know you said you said very few people came to your booth, but the fact that Emanuel Tove sat down at
It
your
wouldn't be
computer
accurate
and
to
you
say
That
very
makes it
few
worth it, yeah.
people. I feel
okay.
like the people that came to my booth that really liked it, that were like their eyes lit up and they were like, this is so cool. It's so simple. It's so nice to, it's like, it's easy to use. I feel like there was probably a dozen people like that. And there were probably a few dozen more on the other half of the showroom that never made it, that just didn't know I was there.
The setup
Yeah.
of the book
It was
exhibit
kind of
was
tucked
really
away.
crappy.
So
Were you were in the neighborhood with Ring Them Bells, I think, weren't you?
Who's that? Ring the bell?
Oh, did
no,
you,
he was
you
completely on the
oh, were you on the
side of the
other
hall.
side? Okay,
Yeah.
see, I didn't actually
Yeah.
get to see it, but it has entered the SPL exhibit
The
hall
halls of
lore.
infamy.
This
Yeah.
you didn't hear about Ring Them Bells?
No.
It's they
It's
are
the Heiser booth. That's what I started calling it. I think some
the
people may
Heiser
recognize
booth.
it.
Okay.
The Heiser booth. Yeah,
Yes.
we'll
They
have
had
to
a
send you
giant
photos of that after
picture
the
of Michael Heiser, emblazoned on the curtain, and
Well, I don't want to
and
derail the discussion, but like Michael
Yeah.
Heiser is like tweeting and making social media posts from beyond the grave, and it's just kind of
yeah.
That's fucking-
Apparently,
that's
he's also
fucking creepy.
overseeing. He's overseeing a ministry
overseeing
too.
a
So
ministry,
shout out to
yes.
him.
Right.
Yeah.
I've left
Also,
some comments to just be like, can you just designate somebody to like be the person in name, like on behalf of,
Just
I
name
don't
it.
know. Yeah.
Memorial or archive something. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Simone is filling in here. There's also different versions of the Misora,
Mm-hmm.
because even in Orthodox circles, what that Misora is it Leningrad? Is it Aleppo? And is it Keter Yerushalayim? So even within people that prefer the Masoretic text, you're like, well, which one?
Yeah.
Which
And
one of those?
So if you can put my screen on the stage for like a couple of minutes, I can explain. So this is my timeline of the Bible. The Old Testament portion is at the top, which Kipp helped with in the early days. And I showed this to Emanuel Tove and explained to him that basically, he looked at the New Testament portion, was like, yeah, that's not, not interesting to him. But it shows it's color coded for the traditional New Testament text types, right? So you can see that it's like eclectic text, Byzantine, Caesarean, Alexandrian, Western. And you can see that basically like the Christian Bible, like the New Testament, is just in a state of textual plurality. Like there's no escaping it, right? You can prefer one text type over the other. You can prefer, in the modern age, we have all of these Bibles that are put together from the critical text, and you can say that this is a reconstruction of the original, or the patriarchal text is the one true text, or the Byzantine majority, or whatever. Like you can take a position on what you think is original, but you can't ignore the fact that there are other kids on the block, right? Like there are multiple textual traditions. And what we're going to see today is an attempt to quarantine this part of the timeline represents something. This is what I showed Emanuel Tove, and Emanuel Tove acknowledged, yeah, this is a visual representation of my work. I told him that, like, this is me just making an illustration of your work. And he said, I'm writing a book right now. If you can send me a PDF of this, I will put it in my book and credit you for it.
That's phenomenal. Nice.
Amazing.
So that's my lifetime achievement. Yeah, immediately, like he looked at it and he saw, okay, because this is, so very, very briefly, Emanuel Tove believes that by the 5th, 4th century BC, there were multiple streams of transmission of the text, that the Hebrew text behind the Vorlagen, behind the Septuagint translation, was a divergent stream of Hebrew that we no longer have, with the exception of a few Dead Sea Scroll examples, that it was separate from the Proto-Masoretic texts in the plural, that family of texts that eventually the predecessors of the Masoretic text, and that the Proto-Samaritan Pentateuch that was behind the Samaritan Pentateuch had a common source, that the LXX and the Samaritan Pentateuch were emerged from. That, like, if you go back far enough, at some point this may have been a unified text, but that it broke. And so what we're going to see today is the theory that this is all bunk. This is all like this is all wrong.
This is the defeater. Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically, if you consider this to be like, maybe this is the consensus that Tove and Eugene Ulrich and those scholars have basically formed what is now the backbone of modern scholarship, and that they believe that there are just these two separate text types, and that all of these later revisions and recensions of the Greek text towards the Masoretic text was an attempt to kind of sweep the variation under the rug and arrive at what would eventually be the final form of the text, which is the Masoretic text. So what we're going to see today is a challenge to all of this. It means I basically could just kiss it all goodbye and, email Emanuel Tove and say, sorry, I'm not sending you your illustration for your book, because I've been convinced by Peter Gentry that all of your work is worthless.
Yeah, that was the one of the very few panels that I made time to go to, was to listen to Emanuel Tove present on the various, I think as he called them, proto-Masoretic or potentially pre-Masoretic texts that we have. And just listening to him talk about all of that was like a masterclass in and of itself in 20 minutes. So it's very difficult for me to listen to people who have literally none of this information rolling around in their brain can to get up there and say, actually, it's completely different. I have to laugh because I'm just like,
to be fair,
okay.
Well, and just to be fair in Steelman Gentry's position, before we get into it, he is not denying that any of these entities exist or that they're different. He just believes that the Proto-Septuagint and the Septuagint translation was just an offshoot of the Proto-Masoretic text that he believes was the universal standard, pristine, just that was the standard
prior to 300.
So he acknowledges that there were deviations from it, but his, we're going to get into the argument where he basically says that if you find textual variation, that presupposes that there was a standard, because the Proto-Masoretic text is the standard to which all of the other variation is measured against.
Which is a very traditional position.
Yeah.
I'll just repeat that, right? Like this is this is something that was the idea that there was a standardized text that you can trace all the way back to like Ezra. And that was the Masoretic text, and that as soon as they built the temple, they put a copy of it there, and it was just copied faithfully over the course of the following centuries up until the temple's destruction in 70 CE, and that is the text that was collected by the Pharisees and then transmitted into the medieval period. So like this was an claim. I mean, this was the model up to shortly after 1947 when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. When they started publishing texts, then
that's one of those things, Kipp, that you've really, like, people who work in your field of Dead Sea Scrolls in particular have really helped break me out of some of that, because this idea that there's an uncorrupted original of anything, of the church, of religion, of the texts, of the whatever, that idea is consistently undermined by discoveries that we make in the material record. And you have people, I don't want to name drop, but There are people who will say, well, yeah, obviously we find ritual sites for Asherah or that syncretize Baal with, other gods and the Israelites worship them. Of course we find them, but they were deviant from the real, true, actual prescribed way. And there's just this disconnect where I'm like, how can you look at all of these discoveries and all of these, manuscript traditions and conclude, well, this doesn't line up with what I think the original was, so I'm just going to call these deviant or aberrant or variations in the sense that they're not different from each other. They're different from a preconceived original. And I'm like, man, you're really doing them a disservice rather than recognizing what people were doing on the ground, which was it wasn't homogeneous everywhere, right? These people had multiple ritual sites. They worship multiple gods. Like, they syncretize them. This is a thing that we track, and just letting that be what it is. You don't have to emulate everything they did. You can say, hey, I'm going to do things different. That's fine. People do that all the time. But when it comes to text and stuff, I'm like, why can't you just let it be different? Why can't you go, hey, this is cool. This is what, people were reading, and this is what they were transmitting, and this is how they understood the information that they received, whether it was by oral tradition or by various other physical media that they were receiving. Like, why can't you let that be cool for what it is? It's frustrating.
Well, the other aspect of this is obviously the question of like, what were the early Christians, if the early Christians were using the Septuagint primarily, the evangelists were using it and quoting it, and Paul mostly uses it. And, and it's like, where they, if you throw out the baby with the bathwater, then you fall into a whole bunch of like, okay, well then I guess the early Christians had the wrong Bible. Like, if you say that it's wrong, that's not what we're going to see in the video, but it is sort of like an implication. And another thing to get into, first of all, I want to state from the get-go that like what Andrew Case presents in this video series, and if you go to my channel, I have the link, and you should definitely watch the whole series. Is great. It's like, I think 5 parts. This is part 4. I have watched a lot of Andrew Case's like content, and Aleph with Beth, his channel for Hebrew, is great. And he does a great job. Like, his Selling Jesus channel is great. Like, I really, really admire the guy. And I know for a fact, having listened to a lot of other, even the other videos in the series, he's not presenting in this video necessarily his personal opinion. He's presenting a video distillation of Peter Gentry's position. So I have heard him on multiple occasions acknowledge the fact that there is a Septuagint text type that is different from the Proto-Masoretic text. Like, he's just simply trying, because Peter Gentry was his professor, he's just making a video of that position. And the last thing I'll say is that one of the concerns that he voices on behalf of Peter Gentry is this idea that if there is textual plurality, if there are textual variants that form a cohesive alternative text of the Bible that was used by sects that were not anti-Pharisaic, or not the Pharisees, that somehow that has bearing on the canon, right? So like if the canon is a collection of books, and then there's a collection of books over here that we Christians believe to be insufficient or whatever, we Protestants don't accept into the canon, that somehow that's interrelated. Like, textual fluidity with respect to text types is tied in with canon, and we're going to see that in the video.
Yeah.
And I do not.
Yeah, that was
can't
something
for the life
that
of me figure out what the connection is.
I forgot to mention that because, especially with evangelicals, but I would just say more broadly Protestants, is this idea that the canon, with a capital C, these are the texts that God definitely preserved in whatever form we have them, because those are the core message, man. That's the meat right there. And you'll see, Christians who were fine with the Deuterocanon, which most Protestants were until about 100 and some odd years ago, going, hey, yeah, those are also important, just not the meat. That's not the absolute core, but they're important. We need to read them, and there's stuff we can get out of it. And the idea that like the canon with a big C is something that God intended, and we need to discover it or recognize it, depending on which camp you're in, that also plays in. Because if there are books that were in that language, not canon, then it doesn't really matter if there's a lot of variation in the text there. But if there are texts that you find that are variants from canon with a big C, that starts causing problems, because then you're like, wait, but I thought God preserved the right version, and these don't look like the right version. But what's going on there? And it starts to mess with what your idea of these rigid categories are. So that, I think that discomfort with those sorts of differences and nuances, it starts to press up against people's like theological comfort zone. And that probably plays in to a lot of this, what we're going to watch. That's just my pre-watch.
Well, yeah,
hypothesis.
I could go on and on, but I think that is my pre-watch spiel. If you want to take down the timeline and or just keep it on the side if you want to pull it back up later to make sense of something that gets addressed.
I do love that chart though.
Thank you.
I would buy a full poster of that chart because.
Well, I have now been tasked by Professor Tove himself to create an Old Testament exclusive version of that will fit on a page in his book. So I don't know. I need to maybe consult Dr. Davis on that one.
Yeah.
When the time comes.
Yeah, this is much more succinctly said. If you believe the Bible is inerrant, then you have to know which text is the Bible. So yeah.
Well, and I think that the creeds usually get around this by saying it was inspired in the original, and that the translations got
corrupted.
So and that just brings us back to the ever present problem of autographs. We might have some in our possession. We would never know it. Most recently, a manuscript of the Book of Daniel has been, pretty convincingly dated to, very, very close in time to when the book was composed. The authors of the study very responsibly just sort of threw out the suggestion that, for all intents and purposes, this is pretty much just as close as one can get to in situ writing of a text. How do we know? There is just no way to determine what that even looks like. If you're pitting your hopes on an autograph copy of any sort of manuscript from biblical manuscript from antiquity, certainly. But we should probably bring the video up and start watching. I think we can watch this one at least 1.5. He speaks at a pretty good cadence. And we can probably skip the song too. We'll see how far we get. Is
there a specific timestamp that I need to go to?
Well, definitely I think he gets right into it. I mean, you definitely want to get the initial intro.
Certainly the intro. Yeah.
Yeah. Because another thing, I don't know. I'll maybe raise my hand to pause, or you guys could pause electively. I
should bring the article up, actually.
Flail wildly.
Back to our series on the text of the Hebrew Bible. If you haven't already watched the first two videos that come before this one, I'd encourage you to do so. Now, by way of introduction to this video, let me tell you a little personal story. When I went to seminary, I had the privilege of studying Hebrew.
I'm going to take this down to 1.25 because I already know people are going to be like, Vishanti, speaking too fast. I can't listen that fast.
Okay. I don't know if the
all right,
volume...
yes.
It's all the way up.
Okay. It's all the way up.
Okay.
And textual criticism under Dr. Peter Gentry. After my first course with him, I quickly realized that I wanted to learn as much as I could from him, so I ended up taking every single class he offered at Southern Seminary. Fast forward to today, and now he has become something of a YouTube star with his short video on the Nephilim, which now has almost 5 million views. But his most important contribution, probably, to biblical scholarship has been his excellent book, Kingdom Through Covenant, and the shorter, less technical version of the book called God's Kingdom Through God's Covenants, which I hope all of you get a chance to read someday. Anyway, I asked Dr. Gentry if he would be willing for me to make one of his presentations on the text of the Old Testament into a video, and he kindly agreed. So what follows is an adaptation of his article, which will be linked in the description, and we'll have all the footnotes not included in this video. Some of it will overlap with what we've already talked about in the previous videos, but repetition and review is always helpful when talking about a complex subject. For those who believe in divine revelation mediated by authorized agents, the central questions are, number one, which writings come from these agents authorized to speak for God? And number two, have their writings been reliably transmitted to us?
So just right
Well
off,
said. That's it.
right? I think it's important to point out, and this is faithful to Gentry's article, who begins with the sentence, canon and text are closely related. For those who believe in divine revelation mediated by authorized agents, the central questions are these ones: which writings came from these agents authorized to speak for God, and have their writings been reliably transmitted to us? So this is from the outset, I think that honestly, it's one of the concerns that I have in reading the article, as we see through the video, is the premise of the question is very much grounded in this conviction that God has spoken to people, and that those things that God has spoken to people are preserved within the text that we have, which is why it's so important to figure out exactly which text it is that you're talking about. And I mean, that is just not a way that scientific textual critics of the Hebrew Bible, of the New Testament, they're just not operating under that same under those same premises.
What do you think about the choice of word? What do you think about the choice of the word chaos to be right there in the title?
Right.
As a characterization, basically, like it's a characterization of Tov's model of textual plurality. He is calling that chaos.
So
I feel like that's not good to do because Tove chooses his words, I think, pretty intentionally,
very carefully,
and there's a completely different meaning for chaos. It's negative, it's disordered, it's a mishmash, it's tohu wavohu, you know, which is not. But I don't think Tove would have meant that at all.
So no, absolutely. I think Vishanti's absolutely right. But let's for real. Brilliant. I think it's a brilliant choice in terms of selling the article to a wider, to a more general public. And I'll say this too. I feel like that's more of what this article is. This does not. I don't know if I would classify this as a proper academic article. You and I talked a little bit about this, Stephen. There are parts of the article that just don't read like a regular peer-reviewed article. And part of the reason for that is that it is published in the Southern Baptist Journal of Theology, which feels like
just about to ask, where did he publish it? And of course, that's why.
Yeah. So, but here's the other thing. And this is something that kind of bugs me as you approach this question, is you are in addition to just kind of mapping on some more modern presuppositions about what the text looked like in antiquity at his pre-manuscript stage, or into the earliest stage of the manuscripts we have, I feel like there's also a sense of what modern people understand as important in terms of textual fidelity, that are also being pushed back into a period that we really know much less about in terms of responding to this question. So we might look at the situation. Gentry looks at the situation and sees chaos. I am not convinced that any Second Temple Jew is looking at the situation and seeing the same thing. And to make that point, I think the evidence from Qumran actually helps us quite a bit, because there was this is one group, this is one community that's a fairly small group with an enormous level of textual pluriformity represented in the manuscripts that they have. I'll often point out things like we have 27 copies of the book of Isaiah in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Not one of them looks like another one of them. There are 36 copies of text that contain Psalms. But, what are these? This is just a whole other thing, and maybe we can talk some more of this as we get into this, because he talks a little bit about Psalms manuscripts. But just because you've got a fragment or 3 fragments with some text from 2 or 4 individual Psalms, this is not the book of Psalms necessarily. This is these are individual manuscripts that contain these individual texts. The conceptualization for what they actually are in Second Temple Judaism is probably different. A manuscript containing the Song of Moses is not a manuscript of Deuteronomy, and we shouldn't treat it like it is in terms of this text critical question of there's ways to get to that, and there's ways of approaching that within this conversation, but you just have to be careful in terms of how you're asking these questions. So just all that to say, I think the fact that within the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have this enormous amount of textual pluriformity just shows us that they certainly had no problems navigating this. It's not chaos in their minds.
But the fact that the term reliable is not defined here, like what constitutes reliable transmission, quote unquote, I think we could agree that that what the Masoretes considered to be reliable transmission was probably well aligned with the way Gentry is visualizing this. It means like consonant for consonant fidelity. Like if you drop a letter, that goes into the Geniza. Like like very, very accurate word for word, letter for letter transmission. And it's just like that. Was that just foreign to the Qumran community? Like, was it just, because he doesn't?
But I will say this though. One thing is that I had to unlearn a trope that I had heard that like, oh, well, these manuscripts were copied so, what's the word I want to use? Faithfully, that if they made one error or a certain number of errors, pick whatever, they would throw out the whole sheet. And I'm like, that is literally not true. We have so many manuscripts from this time period where people scraped off the ink for the divine name, even. Like, this is one of those things that, credit to him, Nehemiah Gordon has done a lot of work on. He'll show people correcting the divine name in manuscripts from the medieval period. They didn't just throw them out or like cut the square and then patch in a new piece of parchment or whatever. So this idea, I had to unlearn that. I was like, oh, well, I thought they were so faithful to whatever originals were there that, that's what they would do. They were so serious that they would like chunk a whole sheet. And I'm like, that's expensive. That's a waste of materials. And you could just correct it in a few minutes. Just let the ink dry. Like, come on. But also something in the paper that they're kind of synthesizing. The reason that this guy published in the Southern Baptist Journal is he can open it up with literally the second sentence is, for those who believe in divine revelation mediated by authorized agents. You're not going to open a paper with that in broad scholarship because that's not a given. And that's not how you do unbiased scholarship. When a scientist or a biologist approaches, animal remains or skeletons or traces of, whatever they had going on, the question that they ask is, how did this animal live and develop over time? How did their, ancestors come to be in this area? And they're asking questions that will be answered by the things that they can find. They don't ask, how did God create this animal to be able to develop to this specific environment? Like, that's not the framing that they start with, because you can't answer that with anything that you could find in any of our ways of understanding the world. So it bothers me that the scholar who has done very good work in other places, like Simone was talking about his work on the Talmud, which is very good, but that's a text he doesn't have a horse in the race for. So of course he can be unbiased and just go straight in and do really hardcore work on it. But when it comes to something that's within like more of his theological wheelhouse, he just immediately grants, well, this is of course divine authorship through human agents, and then granting that as your underlying assumption, then it frames the questions that they're asking, which is the two that they're going to focus on here. That is sus.
But even if you grant that, even if you have the religious conviction, like I do, like the religious conviction that everything is divinely ordained, well, then that means if we exist in a reality where there's textual plurality and pluriformity, then that's also divinely sanctioned, right? That just means that must be part of the plan. So yeah, they're definitely leading here in a way that
I'm grinning because there's this idea in Judaism that's argument for the sake of heaven, and that all of the arguments and the positions that people completely disagree with each other on are equally like valid in terms of like the heavenly court perspective. So that's not something you usually find in Christian circles, that the position and the counter position are, yep, those are both like seal of approval. These are both divinely like ordained discussions that you're having.
Yeah, I mean, if God governs reality, then whatever reality we live in is just like whatever was divinely ordained, right? Like you're kind of you're just stuck with the world that we're in.
So, back to your question about the consonantal text, and if this is something that's accurately represented in what we see in the Qumran. I want to hold off on that until he starts talking about orthography, because I think that's an important component of this discussion. So I think yeah, maybe let's continue.
All right.
To rise to speak for God. And number 2, have their writings been reliably transmitted to us? Although this presentation is focused on the latter question, the former is logically prior. How one answers the first question will determine evaluation of evidence relating to the second. What defines a canonical text, according to Nahum Sarna, is a fixed arrangement of content and the tendency to produce a standardized text. Since the very first biblical text constituted a covenant, this automatically implies a fixed arrangement of content and a standard text. I'm referring to the covenant at Sinai, a marriage between Yahweh and Israel. A marriage contract doesn't have a long oral prehistory. Its content is fixed from the start. The current view today...
I'm not going to spend time on it, but I will push back on that later.
Oh, of course.
But it's not oral first. Like,
so can I sorry, I'm just I had a moment there, and I'm regathering my thoughts. Shoot.
Canonical.
Oh,
they're talking about
canonical.
Yeah, text type is canonical.
So this is the thing that I really like about Ulrich's model. And for those who are in the chat, if you don't know, just briefly, Stephen showed a chart of how Tove has mapped things out with basically the Samaritan Pentateuch and the Septuagint, tracing back into the Persian period at some point, and stemming from a common source in the Masoretic text, also, tracing back to the Persian period. What I like about Ulrich's approach, and the way Ulrich prefers to deal with the evidence from the manuscripts, is to take a more atomistic appraisal of the situation and say that what we're dealing with when we look at individual manuscripts and we're attempting to compartmentalize and to classify them are snapshots in time of where the text is going. And because we have only these snapshots, there's a lot of gaps, and there's a lot of empty space there that requires filling in. And oftentimes these things don't align in the ways that we might expect or anticipate. So one of the things that the Dead Sea Scrolls do reveal to text critics is that certainly the lines between these larger categories, even though we all use them, Masoretic text, Septuagint, Samaritan Pentateuch. There's a whole other category introduced by the evidence from Qumran that's just non-aligned texts because it doesn't fit with anything else. So what has been revealed, what we have seen, is that the boundaries between all these things tend to be really fuzzy. And I think that's what Ulrich's model is good at pointing out, is that you're looking at, and maybe you're looking at these snapshots in time, and you're also looking at individual copies of individual biblical books. Very importantly, at this point in time, we have manuscripts of Isaiah and Ezekiel and, Samuel and Psalms and Deuteronomy and maybe the Torah, which I think is another interesting part of this question, is like the evidence that we have for physical copies of the Torah at this period are all, even that is very much open to discussion and to debate. So what do we have, and why are we calling it a Bible or a canon at this point in time? It's not, in my opinion, it's not faithful to what we have in terms of the manuscripts available to us. We have individual copies of individual texts. We have a sense, we have some ideas about ways in which people grouped these texts together, but there doesn't seem to be much consistency there beyond the fact that, there's this sense of books written by Moses, and there's early evidence, there's evidence at this point that some of these things are starting to be put together, but we really have very, very little evidence for individual copies, like individual compositions appearing together on a scroll. Very interestingly, I think it's interesting. Maybe the earliest evidence we have for actual manuscripts that contain something that looks like a Torah happen to be not Masoretic, not Samaritan Pentateuch, not Septuagint. It's the reworked Pentateuch, right?
Yeah.
So this is an important part of this question, and I feel like this is an important part of this question that Gentry's article, that this video just kind of glosses over.
Well, I would say I like to try to steelman this. I think they're using the term canonical in a different sense when they talk about a canonical text, because again, they're referring to a text type. So the Greek word kanon means like a rod, right? It's a measuring rod. It's like a standard. And kanonikos is an adjective that just means normal, right? It just means regular. It means like judged by, it's the norm. It's the normative thing. So I think when they say canonical text here, what they mean is normative text in the sense of like the short reading of Deuteronomy 32:43. Like that is canonical.
Right.
The longer Septuagint reading backed up by the Dead Sea Scrolls, that is a non-canonical reading, and it has nothing to do with the canon that is referring to the collection of books. That's what I think he means.
And I think that's fair. I think that's fair. But I would continue to push back and say that taking that point and then stretching it to include all the Masoretic texts of these individual books, I think is problematic. I mean, I guess so, and I guess maybe they don't talk about that, because is the presumption here too? I guess that's the other question. Is the presumption here too that the standardized text is the same as the quote unquote original text? Because you can posit a standardized text for, and I think still maintain some sense of Masoretic priority, but only so long as you acknowledge that things like the book of Exodus, things like the book of Joshua, things like the book of Samuel, things like the book of Jeremiah quite clearly have earlier versions that are probably more faithfully attested in the Septuagint.
Well,
Right?
I believe that the canonical text they're referring to, they assume reached its final form. I believe it's stated here by Ezra Nehemiah, 4th century BC. So it's like before that there may
Which
have
is
been some
hella
pluriformity.
early.
Yeah,
right?
but they think
Yeah,
that
that's
by that
and
real
time,
early.
that's the point in time after which they have
Yeah.
fixed it.
Yeah.
Which on
think
my
that's
chart,
kind of a
by the way,
stretch, but
that period on my chart, there's already a split in text types. Like that's where they
Yes.
disagree
Yeah.
with Tove.
Yeah.
Tove does not buy that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing is that, like, when you're dealing with an anthology, which is what the Bible is, we tend to think of it as a unit a lot of times, but it's an anthology. These are the books that were the most popular, that continued to be in use repeatedly by multiple communities over time, and that someone over, or maybe several someones, were like, you know what, let's just like bind them all together and just have them in one place rather than having to pick up 4 or 5 different scrolls or books or whatever. And then that becomes this collection is it. This is now the standard in the accepted like thing from which other things will deviate. And that's also missing a lot of historical nuance, because again, these were not written at the same time, in the same century, at the same cultural and political, surely, context. So they're going to have wildly different aims and, theologies and stuff. And you see that if you kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And another thing that I was thinking of is the process of copying something repeatedly at scale. It crystallizes the text in a way that doesn't allow it to change anymore. When you were copying these by hand in just little pockets here and there because you didn't have a printing press, copying is expensive and it takes a long time.
Yeah, it is.
And doing anything by hand, it requires a lot of schooling and training. So this is labor intensive and very, very time intensive. So the text can breathe in a way that they can't when you're mass producing them at scale repeatedly. And that's something that happens a lot to people who study like oral traditions. Once you write them down, you have crystallized one single version of what used to be like a multiplicity of tellings of whatever tale it is. So it's, to me, it's riding on some not densely packed snow, and it's starting to head down the slope, and I think this is going to start coming loose, but
before you press play, I just want to say, Lil, like he is fast asleep. And all I have on hand are Kit Kats, and I probably shouldn't give him one of those. So
don't. Chocolate's not good for dogs. Don't give your dog chocolate, please. Okay,
right.
well, let's see where he goes. I'm interested to see.
Is that the content and text of the Old Testament was not standard until the 2nd century AD, so Jesus could not really know for sure what writings were inspired by God, nor did he have a stabilized text.
That also hit me as weird because I don't think I've ever heard, certainly not in the Southern Baptist circles, that Jesus wouldn't have known what is divinely inspired, because I always understood it that from their point of view, he is the incarnation of all those spoken words and ideas and whatnot. So whether there was what we would think of as a canon or not, anything he quoted, canon, legit, solid, that's from God 100%. So that hit me weird. Did that hit you at all?
I just don't think it follows. It feels like a non sequitur to me.
Yeah, that's good. I was like, what do you mean Jesus wouldn't have known what was canon or not? I'm like, what?
I have a whole video. I have a whole video on like Luke 4:18 where Jesus is reading from Isaiah 61:1, and he says, "Tiflis anavlipsin," like restore sight to the blind, and that's not in the Masoretic
and that's
text.
not what the
So again, it like so like from a Christian perspective, you just have to accept that this was the version that at least Luke was referencing, if not Jesus himself. And it's different from the Masoretic text. So what do we do? Where do we go from there?
You could also go with the third option, is that, well, it may not have been in any of the texts, but that's what the real true meaning is. That like when they say X, they really meant restore sight to the blind, so he has the authority to like riff on that and make it, I guess, better or more full or something. So
what I am calling chaos theory. Analysis of the evidence has led me to conclude that the text of the Old Testament in content, arrangement, and stability was fixed probably at the beginning of the 4th century BC by Ezra and Nehemiah. It is the history of this text that I attempt to treat in what follows. The authors of the Old Testament produced their work between the 15th and 4th centuries BC. How can we know that the final form of the text...
So, yeah, no.
15th?
No.
That's
Right.
really
Yikes.
So,
Dang it.
I mean, I think we can. I would be prepared to grant that there's potentially snippets, fragments of text within the Hebrew Bible that that would date back. I mean, Song of Moses. I think I don't have an issue with seeing something like that as early as like the
Deborah
11th or
or
12th
Song.
century. Deborah.
Was 12-year-old.
You know, 10th, 11th century, Song of Moses, you know, 7th century. We have, and at that point now we actually have some physical amulets for the blessing of Aaron.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
You know,
Catiphinum
in the Catiphinum
amulets. Yeah.
amulets. But honestly, like it is such by the time of, you know, the 6th, 5th century, you're dealing with a text that has been composed of so much material over you know, a fairly, I would say, a shorter period of time.
Kipp, can you throw up the timeline real quick?
Yes.
So this is another tab in the timeline. This is like the secret menu at In-N-Out
Oh,
Burger.
yeah, look at that.
So like the Bible
Oh,
timeline is
yeah.
here, but I have a Hebrew timeline that's down in this little tab here. And you can see that
That's it.
5th century, periodically, the periodization of the development of Hebrew, this is like the proto-Hebrew
The
period.
very beginning.
Yeah,
Jeez.
we don't have any. It's the
No,
inception of the whole culture.
nothing.
And
Yeah.
then it's not until the 11th century BC that you get inscriptions that are like not even identifiable as
Right,
Yeah.
right. Hebrew.
Hebrew.
Canaanite?
Yeah, is it Canaanite? Is it, and then
Yeah.
Phoenician, and then you finally get Paleo Hebrew script, and it starts to like really take form, and you know, in the 10th, 9th century. Now you got inscriptions. Now you got something to work with. So yeah, 15th is like it's
Yeah,
almost
see,
off the chart.
and that's
Wow.
and that's why scholars are really reluctant to even talk about any of this stuff prior to the 9th, 8th, certainly prior to the 9th, 8th century, as well, because one of the things that is required for the production of a text, certainly anything approaching a standardized text is a scribal apparatus. And that doesn't happen outside of you know, a centralized government. Essentially, you need a temple, and you need a court, and you need scribes.
Yeah.
And
Even if
you
you
know,
don't have some of that, it requires a level of civilization that we don't have any evidence for at that period. Like, people were tribal bands, and they hadn't distinguished themselves as strongly from the other people around them at this point. So I'm like, they were certainly didn't get to the point where they had schools of scribes writing this stuff. Like,
I have Kit Kats on my desk.
All right, so you could flip back to the video.
All right.
Okay. God, I want this chart too. Because that comes up a lot with other people that I talk to. They're like, wait, I didn't know about these.
That unlocks at the $5 a month tier on Cross Bible.
See, there you go. That's what I'm setting you up to promote your software, guy.
Regarded as canonical by the 2nd century BC, has been transmitted to us in a reliable and trustworthy manner. The answer to this question can be provided, number one, by describing the sources that have survived, whether they are copies of originals in Hebrew or Aramaic, or whether they are ancient translations or versions. And number two, by understanding the history of the transmission of the text. The word understanding here is all important because the data are not self-interpreting.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, but the data become a lot more apparent when you have a lot of it and you have stuff from the region and the time period. Then it's not like, oh my gosh, this is coming out of nowhere. What's happening? I don't know what's going on.
Well, what follows is very, like, in my opinion, very objectively, like, factual stuff. Like, he does a very nice overview here, I think.
I would agree for the most part.
Simone's like self-interpreting data equals a priori knowledge, I guess. Yeah, I was like ripping on that.
Odd terms, 3 stages can be discerned in the history of writing the biblical text in Hebrew. First, only consonants were used to represent the language in the earliest stage of writing. This is a reliable way of writing since context determines readings that are uncertain. Israeli newspapers still use only consonants. Correct pronunciation of the biblical text, moreover, was passed down orally from priest.
I really don't like that he compared that to modern Hebrew, like Israeli newspapers.
But so this is maybe just finish. I'll say something about this, but maybe just finish his points on the 3 stages.
To scribe. Second, beginning sometime in the 9th century BC, the letters He, Vav, and Yod, and later also sometimes Aleph, were given a double function to represent long vowels as well as consonants. This system, however, was not consistent or systematic, and moreover did not represent all the vowels. Thirdly, during the period 600 to 1000 AD, Jewish scholars called Masoretes developed a system of dots and squiggles to go over and under the letters. The dots represented all the vowels and also the accents. Early Hebrew writing employed a script similar to that used by the ancient Phoenicians. Later, under the influence of the Chaldean kings of Babylon, scribes switched to using the Aramaic script. Here's an example of Genesis 1:1 in archaic Hebrew script. And here's what it looks like in Aramaic square script.
This has no real super direct relevance, but I'm going to just stand 10 toes down on this. Switching to the Aramaic writing system was a mistake, in my opinion.
Really?
Because once you get to some of the Dead Sea Scrolls and some of the textual manuscripts that we have, the difference between a Yod and a Vav, or a Hey and a Het, or Rosh and Dalet are just nearly indistinguishable, and it has caused so many problems.
Well, I mean, you do have some in terms of some of the old Hebrew scripts that we have. You do have some room for confusion with a few, not the same letters, but some different ones. So
also, this is me just, I'm being very tongue-in-cheek, because I'm thinking very specifically of Psalm 22, where there's, for some ridiculous reason, there's continually debate over, is this a Vav? Is it a Yod? Does it matter? Like, yes, it matters.
Well,
because
we know why. But yeah, they are, especially for letters that repeat so frequently, it certainly is inconvenient.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Go back to wingdings.
Finally, here's what it looks like with Masoretic vowels and accents.
Well, also, those are cancellation marks as well. That's not just the vowels. That's how you would.
He said accents. So. So that's the and
it's a layman's. I think for a layman's presentation.
So and this is
gigantic.
So this is the thing here too, right? Now this is pulled straight out of the article. And even the chart here of Genesis 1:1 is pulled straight from the article. When I was reading the article and I was reading this part, I'm like, this is a very strange thing to include in an academic article, which just screamed popular level treatment of the material for a lay audience to me, and not necessarily a and I don't know, maybe Gentry has developed these ideas in a more serious academic study setting elsewhere, but it's not like it. I don't think this is really the right venue for it. So now, so on the orthography, now the reason he makes this point, I don't know that he develops it as well as I think he should have. The reason he makes this point is because the Masoretic text is characteristically what we would call more defective. It's shorter. There's not as much long orthography within the Masoretic text as compared to examples that we see later in the Dead Sea Scrolls, where the orthography is much fuller. And there is like Christopher Rolston has tracked this development of an increasing usage of vowel letters Vav, Yod, and sometimes Aleph in text over the course of time, starting in the 9th century and becoming more and more prevalent as you move forward. So I think what tends to happen here is that people look at the Masoretic text, which is more, let's say it's more compact, without the fuller orthography, to say, well, this must preserve something that's more archaic because there's less orthography here than what we see in some of these other examples stemming from the Dead Sea Scrolls. So I get the argument, and I understand why that tracks logically. The problem is, again, that our starting point is still, at best 3rd century BCE in terms of the actual manuscripts that we have.
Yeah, he's also skipping like 700 or 800 years of the way that Hebrew letters looked, even when you switch to the Aramaic alphabet. Like Simone's saying, I wish you would use period scripts, because the period scripts that you find, especially like in the Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever, they don't look like these beautifully printed.
Oh, we're getting to that too. So yeah, okay. We'll say something about the Paleo Hebrew here in a second, which I think is important to this to this discussion as well.
I'm gonna keep going.
Sure.
As already noted, the Masoretes devised a system of signs to represent the vowels and committed the reading tradition handed down orally to writing.
Is this from Elder Scrolls? I'm sorry.
Is it?
It's not relevant. This is funny. Just shut up, gamers.
I think this is
At the beginning, only a few vowels were shown.
Oh, wow.
Assassin's Creed? Okay.
Assassin's Creed,
I'm just like
Odyssey?
I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm fine with this. Honestly, I would much prefer people use video games for their stock footage than AI, just so I'm giving some credit for this.
Full vocalization was shown under the influence of Syriac and Arabic literature. Secondly, they also developed a set of diacritical signs to mark the accents according to the chanting of the text in the synagogue. The history of the Masoretes correlates with different groups of Jewish scholars. First, a large-scale immigration to Babylon occurred from 132 to 136 AD, after the Third Jewish Revolt. Later, conquest of Palestine by Islam in 638 AD made possible a return to Palestine of Jewish scholars.
He's skipping the entire school at Yavne. And God. I'm okay. I just, as a Team Yerushalmi, like, Talmud studier, there were people still living there, and there was a school that was still there. It didn't last as long, I grant you that, but just wish it would get its flowers, Sometimes I wonder if most of these guys even know that there's 2 Talmuds, but that's neither here nor there. Yavne is my Camelot, okay? Don't at me.
And a revival of textual work in Tiberias. As a result, there are different systems of vocalization. Tiberian, which is sublinear, Palestinian, which is supralinear, Babylonian, which is also supralinear, and expanded Tiberian, which is a system that combines elements of the standard Tiberian vocalization with features from the Palestinian tradition, which can be seen in Codex Reuchlin from 1105 AD. There are 2 famous families of Tiberian Masoretes. Number 1, Ben Asher, and number 2, Ben Naphtali. The text of the Ben Asher family is universally accepted as the most faithful preservation of the text. These medieval Masoretic manuscripts are accurate witnesses to an ancient consonantal text of the highest quality.
What you got, Kipp?
No, I'm just it's so I gotta say, like, I do like his, like, this is an excellent brief summary of I would say like the peaks in terms of in terms of textual development, in terms of text criticism and the transmission of the Hebrew text into the medieval period. Like I mean, I kind of like it. He's not going to hit everything, but I think it does a decent job of that. But again, I also it's very much, and yeah, this is very clearly geared towards educating people on what you're looking at with Hebrew manuscripts, which are mostly medieval. It's importantly though, things like the development of the vowel pointing systems are, I won't say they're not relevant, but they're considerably less relevant to the question of textual priority if we're serious about tracking textual development back into the earlier parts of the Second Temple period. So that's it. That's all.
Okay.
The following chart lists important early manuscripts, and you can pause the video to read through it.
So, yep, there they are. Everything from the 10th to the 13th, 14th, 15th century CE. Now, importantly, something else I think should be said here is when again you raised this question in the first place. That is a good question. Why is Aleppo in scare quotes? I don't know, but interesting. So sorry, I got distracted by that. What was I saying? Shoot. Yes, you
It's
raised the
missing-
question, Stephen,
Okay.
of I got it. Of you know, what are we talking about? Faithful, reliable, in terms of evaluating this activity. There is this presumption already, and it's a natural one because this is the presumption of the rabbis working in, you know, like the 4th, 5th, 6th century and beyond. Their expectation was that the Masoretic text that they had was the gold standard text from which to work. But you know, we have, importantly, one of the things you'll notice in his discussion of manuscripts is there's still, as much as we've been able to fill in little bits from, you know, before the 10th century CE, there's still really big gaps in this in tracking how these things develop prior to the 3rd century, certainly 4th century CE. So there's just so much about what we don't know happened to the text. The text that happened to be preserved by, you know, the Pharisees, who were the only ones who emerged. Who were the primary group that emerged out of the crises of the 1st and the 2nd century CE, which has an enormous
Last one
effect
standing.
on the, you know, this has an enormous effect on how the text moves forward in time and the attitudes towards the text that proceed from that too, right?
Yep.
So.
Okay.
As many as 3,000 manuscripts are known from the Middle Ages. All of them attest the same textual tradition, with only minor variation. These manuscripts have not been consulted systematically.
What does he mean by minor variation?
But I mean, at this period in time, I'll accept it, right? Because it's you're dealing with manuscripts that are proceeding from a pretty fastidious set of scribal practices that we actually observe at work. So in that sense, I will say that, and this is something that I feel it often important to emphasize and point out to people, that there's no question that by the time the Masoretes are working with manuscripts starting in the 6th century CE, these do look dramatically different in terms of the scribal practices that are used as compared to what is actually happening in the late Second Temple period, in the manuscripts that we have. We can't retroject what the Masoretes are doing back then.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that he's making this point as a qualification, because it allows me to say that, right? It allows me to say what the Masoretes are doing is not the same thing as what people were doing in the late Second Temple period, prior to the destruction of the temple and the Second Jewish Revolt. It just isn't.
Selah.
Since Kennicott and de Rossi analyzed them in the 18th century. And that's a fascinating story in and of itself for another time. Now, as we saw in previous videos, before 1900, we had no Hebrew manuscripts prior to the Masoretes around 1000 AD. And two discoveries changed all this. And we are just beginning to evaluate the new materials. And these were, number one, the text from the Judean desert, which we'll cover at length in a future video, and number two, the Cairo-Geniza fragments. Now, at this point, we can also mention 8.
When was all the stuff at Elephantine
all the
brought into
Elephantini
common? Yeah.
with no biblical texts in them.
Yeah.
I mean, composed in the 5th century
Like
and
100
then
years ago.
discovered.
Yeah.
When were they discovered?
I think about 100 years ago. Somebody in the chat probably knows.
5th century
it's just,
BC.
I try to bring some of that up because, again, this is one of those other things where there was one right way to do everything, and people that didn't do it that way were just nah. But when you look
discovered
at
in
correspondence between
1893, with excavations
150 years
continuing
ago.
until 1910.
Okay.
but it's like you read correspondence between that community and the one in like Judea, and you're like, they don't seem to have a problem with people doing whatever they were doing down there. So yeah.
They sure didn't package up a copy of Nehemiah's Torah and send it along.
This is the OG. Keep it safe
for the people in Elephantini.
Now copy this exactly. Like, they were just like, hey, what's up, cousins down there? What's going on? It's like, well, stuff's kind of rough. How about you? Yeah, same.
Manuscripts from the 3rd to 7th centuries, which I'll put on the screen so you can pause it.
So, yep.
I should add these to my timeline.
That's a good idea, actually. You should.
Before I hand it over to Emanuel Tove for as my legacy.
Yes.
Excellent. All right.
These witnesses cast enormous light on the early history of the Masoretic text. Now, at this point in Gentry's article, he discusses the ancient versions of the Hebrew Bible, like the Septuagint and the Samaritan Pentateuch. But since we covered these in the first video, we'll skip this section, but you can benefit from it if you read the original article. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls has highlighted the fact that before the 2nd century AD, differences are attested between our earliest preserved copies of the text, as well as between the parent texts of the earliest translations. What are these differences like, and what do they tell us about the history of the transmission of the text? We can classify our earliest witnesses to the text according to 2 types: manuscripts or translations that represent a simple, straightforward copying and transmitting of the text exactly and precisely as received, and 2, manuscripts and translations that represent scribes revising and updating the text to make it relevant and understood to the current circumstances or generation. James A. Sanders labels the former the repetition factor and the latter the resignification factor.
I wonder how he figures the Targumim into this. Like,
he does talk about
the
those.
second category.
Yeah. So, but they would definitely. I mean, they. Well, I mean, I guess it would depend on which one. Yeah, and exactly right.
Yeah.
Simone, now, and this goes back again, and the reason why he brought the orthography up, right, is because the Masoretic text looks conservative on the basis of the fact that there's just fewer letters in there than what you see in some of the other manuscript traditions. But again, I'm not sure that this is the right way to go about it. I mean, it clearly it is pretty circular to say the consonantal text was such that it was already set, and you couldn't make the kinds of changes to the consonantal text that you wanted to, and everything else that doesn't conform to that, we now classify or consider as facilitating. It is, yeah, it is begging the question.
Yeah, this is what I was laughing at. Christians inventing their own versions of the Tanaim and Amoraim, and then clarifying for the audience that Tana's repeating, like the early repeaters, and the Amoraim are the explainers. And I'm like, yeah,
that's true. That's fun.
Yeah. Also, again, the Elephantine Papyrus calls God's consort Anat Yahu the same one as Baladad. So, yeah, when you're writing back and forth and it's like, hey, check out the definite right way to do stuff. Yeah, okay, we're just going to talk about God's wife for a while. Is that fine? Yeah, whatever. Come on. I want to be on the fly on the wall during those eras, man.
Such a classification is extremely helpful in evaluating the apparent chaos in the witnesses. Andrew Teeter uses the terms conservative and facilitating to describe the two types of approaches taken by copyists and translators. Allow me to quote his description of the evidence. The evidence from the period demonstrates a general distinction between two scribal models defined by the effort either to produce an exact copy, the primary goal being fidelity to the letter, or to produce a copy which facilitates understanding, the primary goal being readability or comprehension of meaning, a goal which authorizes a certain latitude with regard to textual intervention, above all in matters of linguistic updating and interpretive expansion. A spectrum of manuscripts produced by both models coexisted in Palestine in the late Second Temple period. Both were in widespread use, demonstrated on the one hand by the broad attestation of exact or conservative manuscripts among the discoveries at various sites in the Judean desert, including Qumran, and on the other hand by the facilitating texts represented by the Samaritan Pentateuch, the Septuagint, other scriptural manuscripts and citations within the literature of the Dead Sea Scrolls, by the forelogin of several rewritten Bible compositions, by various New Testament attestations, as well as by a variety of echoes in rabbinic tradition. At this point, I want to insert
Man! Put some respect on Jubilee's name. That's doing a lot of stuff, and that's on my mind because I'm in a class on Jubilees right now, and it's very much doing similar things to the Book of First Enoch, which he doesn't include here. Give that book its flowers.
Well, in the etc.
Yeah, it is.
And this is... Man, come on. They quoted almost directly from First Enoch in Jude or whatever, and it's like, come on, man. You could have at least put it in there, because half the Christians don't know where that comes from, and the other half are like, oh, we can get bonus download DLC material about the truth of the world just by reading First Enoch. It's not canon, but it totally has DLC in it. I'm like, come on, just make it the cool books that they were. If you don't read anything else, some of this apocalyptic literature and Second Temple literature is just really cool for the way that it riffs on the narratives that we have preserved. And, Jubilees has a lot more named women characters in it, which, damn it, the freaking text that we have should have done.
There you go. If you've watched any of my series on the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of the things that I talk a little bit about is how much the categories that were used to classify all the literature in the first place, as necessary as they were, just because you work from what you know to what you don't know. Excuse me, how much they have, I think, performed a disservice to the study of the literature beyond that. Working from what they knew to what they didn't know, they were, the first scholars were able to recognize right away copies of biblical texts, right? So that was a category, biblical texts. Anything else that wasn't Bible just got thrown into the other grouping, non-biblical texts, which includes things that we already also knew about, like the Book of Jubilees, like the Book of Enoch. And then, beyond that, they've got other things like sectarian texts and non-sectarian texts. This grouping of so-called rewritten Bible, which is in many ways one of the things that I talk about in the first book that I wrote, one of the things that I point out in the first chapter is that we should only be talking about this category, so-called rewritten Bible. I feel pretty strongly should be based on some sort of textual appraisal, the reuse of an identifiable text prior to it. So much of what constitutes quote unquote rewritten Bible are more like pastiches or major expansions on ideas or tropes evidenced through the biblical text, but you can't tie them in a textual way that you can like say. I would say that there's certainly significant portions of the Book of Jubilees that are rewritten Bible, because they literally have a copy of the Book of Genesis in front of them that they are pulling text out of and supplementing it. But that is certainly not what's happening in the Genesis Apocryphon, which is just, kind of like this stuff is out there, it's in the air, it's we have these stories, it's very, very free form. Is that rewritten Bible? I don't like it as much for that. I think there's something different going on
rewritten
there.
Bible?
Yeah, see, this is I would push it more in that direction, right?
Well,
but
one thing that I'm getting a little ahead, but when we get to it, he's going to say, he's restating what Gentry says, is that facilitating texts, which I think rewritten Bibles would fall under that category, presuppose that there is a standard, and then they reach from there to, and the standard is the Proto-Masoretic text.
Right, but with something like the Genesis Apocryphon, which you can't tie to any textual tradition, what do you do with that?
It's like
surprise.
So
one of the other things that I've spent some time doing, and I've worked with Matthew Monger's doing exactly the same thing, is when you're appraising these, when you sit down and just appraise the literature from the perspective of scribal practices, the picture looks different. The Temple Scroll and the Genesis Apocryphon are excellent examples of these. These are massive manuscripts, like massive. They're huge. They're probably we have no idea how big the Genesis Apocryphon was, but what we have left of it is pretty big. The Temple Scroll, we also have a clearer idea of how big it was, but it's still not entirely certain. But like, these were exquisite, magnificent like readers' copies that were extremely expensive to produce, were written to the highest standards of scribal practice in place at the time. Why would you consider these any qualitatively different from a copy of the Book of Genesis that bears this same scribal features? It just so there's lots of stuff going on in my head as we introduce sorts of
your Chronicles rewritten Bible. I mean,
yes,
yeah,
right. So it's and for those who have purchased the book and read chapter 14 already, is Genesis 37 a form of rewritten Bible based on the succession narrative, or vice versa? Like, there are varieties of ways that you can go with this. This is it's yeah, by the way, I have to say this because I watched a thing. I actually think it was on History Valley this last week, about so a guy was on there positing that the Book of Deuteronomy was actually written in the 2nd century to promote the Hasmonean the Hasmonean kingdom. And one of the points made in favor was the fact that the the book of Deuteronomy is, rewritten Bible, and we only have rewritten Bible in, starting in like the 3rd
Propping up the
century
BCE. Okay.
BCE. So yeah, okay. But
Kipp Davis has written nope.
Not mean to do that. I really didn't. It didn't happen. So,
I had to do it to him.
At this point, I want to insert a few modern personal examples of how scripture can be used in different ways to help us grasp the idea of resignification or facilitating texts. Now, over the years, I've written a lot of songs that are either pure scripture or scripture-based. Let's take this example from Psalm 89. Listen to how the chorus goes and compare it to the actual ESV text it was based on.
Righteousness and justice are the foundation.
Yo don't want to get struck for playing a bunch of stuff on,
maybe
hey,
maybe jump ahead
everybody.
to the end of the song. So basically the point, and maybe
quick,
jump ahead a minute or two even. The point that he's making here is that if you enter your Christian bookstore full of a mix of Christian literature as well as Bibles, and many different types of Bibles, study Bibles versus devotional Bibles versus liturgical Bibles versus showpiece, like coffee table Bibles. You wouldn't say amid all this variety that the text is still in flux or transition, even though you've got this wide variety available to you. And he's positing from that the same thing is taking place in like the late Second Temple period,
Analogous.
where, right, like just because you have all these different, you have so-called excerpted texts or liturgical manuscripts that contain lots of textual variation in them. There's lots of riffing happening on the biblical text. There's lots of facilitating going on with regards to the biblical text. That doesn't mean that there's not a standard biblical text in place. It's so basically what Gentry's doing is he's looking at all the same evidence. He's agreeing that yes, we have these text types all in place as early as the 3rd century, the Samaritan Pentateuch, the Septuagint, and the Masoretic text, but everything, and the reworked Pentateuch, and the non-aligned stuff, and the paraphrases, and the Targums, all this stuff, everything else is just riffing off of the MT. The MT is at the center of it all, and everything's just expansive beyond that, and everybody within the period understood that. And those are some big claims.
Okay.
For the sake of preserving the text for future generations or to produce an accurate Bible. 1,000 years from now, a scholar might look at my song and say, oh my goodness, this is proof that the canonical...
Man, I just retract everything I said about giving him credit for using video game footage. What is this AI slop nonsense? This clinker abomination, tech heresy.
Text had not yet been established in 2024. There was still great fluidity in what was perceived as...
Like, he could have just asked his teacher to take a selfie and just done some Photoshop on it. You didn't have to do this.
But it's a very specific prompt, right?
A third
it's
of Bible scholars look like
surprised
this anyway.
old man in disco outfit with headphones.
On the Star Trek set.
On the Star Trek bridge, I guess. Yeah.
All right.
God, I slap so much. I hate it.
I know you do. So
authoritative scripture.
I'm one of the
There are so many...
Mujahideen in the Butlerian Jihad, okay? AI must go. It must be destroyed.
That it must be coming from a source text very different from the Masoretic text. But that scholar would be dead wrong because he doesn't realize that there are many creative uses of scripture for liturgical purposes and teaching and much more. Moreover, some of my other songs combine verses from different books of the Bible into one place, creating a kind of scriptural potpourri. Another simple example of scripture use that could be called resignification is my book, Praying the Bible Together, which turns passages of scripture into prayers. A lot of changes to the original text had to be made. So here's a short example from just 2 verses. Have mercy on us, for we have plowed iniquity. We have reaped injustice. We have eaten the fruit of lies. We have
bro's just reverse engineering Jewish liturgy at this point. Like, you know what? It's fine. I'm glad that they stay in their playground for the most part. We have enough of our stuff being stolen. Just do it. It's fine.
Trust it in our own way. Do not destroy us. Now notice how the same 2 verses are molded into a much shorter passage as a prayer. This isn't because it's an attempt to adulterate, deceive, or rewrite scripture. No, rather it's simply an effort to
I don't like
facilitate
that
the
word,
spiritual discipline of praying the
deceive.
Bible.
I really don't like that.
Which
because
word?
and that's the word deceive here.
Deceive, yeah.
Yeah. Is and to be fair, he's saying no, that's not what's going on. But I think just stemming from the presumption that anytime you make changes to the text, and in many ways there's an apologetic at work here for the priority of the of the Masoretic text by suggesting that changes could be perceived as deception. It's not helpful for understanding anything about scribal practices in the late Second Temple period, and in terms of the transmission of the biblical literature at this period at this time either. So changes were nobody understood these changes as somehow hoodwinking the audience into this was very much about communities adapting literature into forms that were most suitable for their own purposes, the purposes of their readers and their audiences and their communities. That's why the text changed, and the text is not bound at this. That's the other thing too. From everything that we see, the text is not bound. I mean, even in terms of if you think about something like the Pesherim, if you're dealing with let's say we are dealing with a standardized text, it's almost like at this period in time, let's say we are dealing with a standardized text, it's almost like lots of people at this point in time didn't even think that was all that important. What was really important was all the nuggets you can mine out of this text, and to the degrees that they would stretch the text in order to say things that it clearly did not say, is kind of the point. So, I feel like I rambled a bit there. Sorry.
Well, look, I mean, there are
So
sort of textual variants that arise for such a variety of reasons. Recently,
So many.
Recently I had a comment. I think it was on Facebook. Somebody was complaining about Codex Sinaiticus because its rendition of Revelation 22:14 has the textual variant, "Blessed are those who wash their clothes." And in the traditional, like the received text, the Textus Receptus, it says, "Blessed are those who fulfill his commandments." And I think the common sense reading is like, it probably said fulfill the commandments, right?
Yeah.
Piunde estás endolasaftu. But then in the critical text, they went with the difficult reading, which is like, "Blessed are those who wash their clothes," which is kind of like, but it's like plinon de tas stalasafton. If you like compare them, they're super similar. So there's clearly scribal confusion going in one direction, but like I can't say which of those is better. But it's like, but it's still random, and it's like, so is one of those deceptive? Is like washing your clothes?
Yeah, right.
Deceptive? Is it a corruption, or as opposed to fulfilling his?
That bothers me. It's like people weren't sitting there going, "Ha ha ha ha,"
washing their clothes. The devil was doing that.
Rolling their mustache.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
I have to say this. I think we could probably go for another 20 minutes before we're gonna have to start wrapping up, because I've got somewhere to be.
I don't know if there's a point. I don't know if there's a point in the video we could skip to that would be more substantial.
Can we?
Than the layman's explanations.
There are chapters here, right?
Yeah, maybe
can you
chapter earliest witnesses, which is a lot of stuff, and then it's the function of the text, different text for different something, complementarity,
And I
Evans
would
of the
invite,
Targum.
I have links to this video and the articles and everything on the Cross Bible. I don't know how much you put. I sent it to Kipp as well to put in this description. So links in the description for people that
They're in
want
the
to dig into
description.
this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there I don't know, maybe, I mean, I've got some things that I can say more generally about some of the elements of his presentation. Um, I'm just trying to think here. Where does he talk about the Psalms as the evidence for the priority of the Masoretic text? Because I think there's something here which is interesting that I'd like to point out.
Let me look in this.
Can
transcripts.
you
I could look in
pull
the
that
transcript.
up?
Probably right here.
Right here. Yeah. So right here. Just press
Okay.
play here.
Let's go here. Yeah.
First, an example of a conservative or repetition approach,
Yes,
which copies the
perfect.
parent text exactly and precisely in every way, is the Masada Psalm scroll from the last third of the 1st century BC. The Masada Psalm scroll has a precise format and layout. As we all know, the Book of Psalms is written in poetry, and Hebrew poetry is based on couplets of parallel lines, and each column of this scroll has approximately 29 to 30 lines, and one couplet is placed on each line, with an appropriate space between the parallel lines of the couplet. Only about 10 of the manuscripts from the Judean desert are carefully laid out in this way. The one manuscript at Qumran, which most closely resembles the Masada Psalm scroll, is 4QPSB, although it has only half a couplet per line in the column of text, and it has only 16 to 17 lines per column compared to 29 to 30 lines in the Masada Psalm scroll. The format and text of 4QPSB are also not as close to the later MT as the Masada Psalm scroll. So the Masada Psalm scroll is a model scroll. We can compare the Masada Psalm scroll with both earlier and later traditions. First, its text agrees almost completely with the Aleppo Codex, and the divisions marked by the blank spaces and line breaks in the Masada Psalms agree very closely with the Masoretic terminal markers, accents, and pausal forms. The Aleppo Codex also employs a system of division by blank spaces, but this doesn't correspond well with meaningful breaks or the pattern in the Masada Psalm scroll.
Do you want to talk about that at all?
Which specifically?
With a break versus the interline break versus the paragraph break. Do you want to talk about that at all? Or?
So with the Psalms, it's this is I have written an entire article about this, which is I'll be honest, this is part of why I wanted to talk about this, because I actually wrote a whole piece exploring what he's talking about here is the technical term for it among scholars is stichometric arrangement, where individual stikos in the parallel phrases that are used in Hebrew poetry are provided their own individual line. This isn't the only way to do it. There's other ways, some other ways to do it. This is what I called this was a 1-to-1 format where each individual sticko gets its own line. I think he actually said that. There are some manuscripts where you have 2 individual stickos on the same line. Those are less common. He mentioned that there's 10 manuscripts or so from the Judean desert that preserve this format. He doesn't talk a lot about this, which I think is important. The whole point of my article, which I titled, let me get to the beginning: Structure, Stichometry, and Standardization, an analysis of scribal features in a selection of Dead Sea Psalm scroll. I think what he's doing is he's just looking at Psalms manuscripts when he's taking this into consideration as evidence for Masoretic priority. And I think it's important to point out what he's saying here is that this is an example of standardization, even insofar as the fact that the same breaks in the individual the way that each stikko is arranged in the Masada Psalms manuscript from probably 60 CE is identical to what you see in the Aleppo Codex, which suggests that, and we also have stichometrically arranged manuscripts prior to that in the Judean desert. Therefore, Masoretic priority, right? There's this standardized text in place. This is the evidence for it on this other level. Importantly, there are also manuscripts from the Judean desert that do not preserve this stichometric arrangement. We have manuscripts from the Judean desert which preserve a mix of stichometrically arranged material with what I would call prosaically arranged material, where you're just writing from the beginning of a column to the end of a column, and just straight like you would a narrative text as opposed to a poetical text. I actually think you can track the development of this feature, stichometry, as a scribal feature through the Judean manuscripts, and it looks like it dates back to some time at the beginning of the first century BCE. It's interesting because the earliest Psalms manuscripts that we have do not exhibit any stichometric arrangement of any kind. What is also interesting is that there are other manuscripts that aren't Psalm scrolls. For example, 4Q380, which is designated 4Q non-canonical Psalms because it's a collection of Psalms that nobody ever knew or saw before the emergence of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Yeah, guess what? There are stichometrically arranged material in that particular manuscript, which is also quite old. It's first century BC.
But what are we really?
BCE.
What is being proven by the fact that the Masoretes are favoring the proto-Masoretic text? Like, isn't that kind of just
like
by
that
definition?
It is circular again. Yeah. You're just, and this is the other, like, here's the other thing that I wanted to mention at this point too, that is just missing from this conversation. And this goes back to the question of scripts as well, is from an historical perspective, what's missing is what happened in the mid 2nd century BCE, which produced what I think I think you see an increase towards standardization in script, in text type. I would say a movement towards that, but not something that's certainly not complete. Textual pluriformity is alive and well all through this period, but I think you've got a movement within script, within text, and some scribal practice. And the thing that also happened in the mid 2nd century BCE, which helps to explain all of that, is the emergence of the Hasmonean kingdom. The Hasmoneans were probably the ones who prioritized the Masoretic text in the first place. They're probably responsible for making it the most readily available text throughout Jewish communities, starting in the mid 2nd century, because this is essentially what we see is sort of a movement, an increase in Masoretic priority starting at that point, and prior to that, a much more a stronger tendency towards pluriformity. There's actually a lot of texts in the Judean desert which seem to align more closely to the Samaritan Pentateuch in the Judean desert examples that we have, which I don't think really works well in this model. He does mention at one point in this video, and it's mentioned in the article as well, the so-called proto-Hebrew manuscripts in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which preserve the Torah. The Samaritan Pentateuch tradition is part of this is preserved in this Paleo-Hebrew script, right? Importantly, this is also something that emerged as part of this Hasmonean resurgence. One of the programs of the Hasmoneans was a revitalization. It was a nationalization. The whole program was geared towards conservatism of those old Hebrew, those old things that distinguish us as a distinctly, Jewish community, the Hebrew script. We're going to pick a text type and we're going to promote it. These sorts of things, right? This is probably where you start to see things like Torah manuscripts becoming more and more prevalent, where prior to that, it just wasn't there. Yes, Phoenician Abjad.
The
That's
Phoenician
exactly what I
Abjad.
mean.
Yes.
So I say Paleo Hebrew because whenever I say Hebrew, people get confused and they think about this, which is Aramaic. So it's all of this stuff is happening in the mid 2nd century, which contributes enormously to the question of textual priority. I think that is taking place at the same time. I don't know. What do you think, Stephen?
This also gave me a thought.
I want to run something by you. So yesterday I was like going through this article and going through some articles of Emanuel Tove, and then this great article I sent you by John Schrenek. All of those are in the description, at least on my side. And I ran it all through...
John Schrenek, by the way, also a Trinity Western University grad.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well, I made text files from the PDFs. I adopted the text files and I trained a custom GPT to basically be an adjudicator of the 3 positions and to give me an assessment of the falsifiability of the 2 theories. And this is its assessment, and I'm wondering if you would verify what this is ChatGPT, this isn't me. So it says Tove/Ulrich's view, like the mainstream hypothesis, is falsifiable in this way. If newly discovered scrolls overwhelmingly aligned only with proto-MT, their theory would weaken. Tove explicitly allows for the possibility that pluriformity could be more limited than currently believed. Gentry's model, however, can always reclassify deviations as quote-unquote facilitating.
Facilitation, yes.
Yes, so it resists falsification unless he establishes criteria distinguishing true textual variation, meaning text types, from facilitation. He does not do this rigorously. John Schrenek argues that we must assume a Septuagint divergence reflects a Hebrew text unless it can be proven to be a translation choice. This flips the burden of proof. Gentry implicitly places the burden on those who claim Hebrew variation, which makes his claim harder to test and therefore less falsifiable. And Schrenek's model forces textual critics to prove that something is merely translational before discarding it as evidence. Gentry's approach often moves the opposite way. So the bottom line is Gentry's model is not inherently unfalsifiable, but without explicit and testable criteria distinguishing the true textual variation from mere facilitation, it risks becoming an elastic theory that can accommodate any evidence, thus removing itself from empirical scrutiny.
Yeah, like that's, I mean, honestly, that's, and it's, again, I think all of this stems from making the decision a priori to prioritize the Masoretic text and then just insist that everything flows around it. Yeah. So long as things are flowing around it, you can, that's exactly it, right? You can just say, well, the Masoretic text always remains at the center. And we might make new discoveries and we can adjust the criteria as follows to show that it's just new things are always, or there's more going on surrounding the Masoretic text than what's thought. I agree. I think that I think that's a good way of summarizing it. It's nice that you did that. I also think something that I think is really interesting to point out in this conversation is that if you read Emanuel's work diachronically, like if you start with stuff that he was writing back in the 1980s and then through the 90s and the aughts and into the 2010s, there's movement in Tove's thinking on this too. Tove in the early stages had had a so I think the easiest place to see this is in how the so-called reworked Pentateuch has evolved over the course of the last 30 years. When the so-called reworked Pentateuch manuscripts were first published, this was the title that was assigned to them, and the conversation surrounding the manuscripts, and Tove was one of the editors of the RP material along with Sidney Wright Crawford, and they presented these as, again, manuscripts that were paraphrasing and harmonizing elements of the Torah, but we cannot classify them as a text type in their own right, just because they're a step too far outside of these more narrow confines. But now most scholars are sitting in the camp, including Emanuel Tove and Sidney White Crawford, where RP, Rework Pentateuch, is now kind of its own text type that most scholars view alongside, in conversation with, Septuagint, Samaritan Pentateuch, Masoretic text. So I say that because I think it's important to point out that the fact that Tove has been actively moving in a direction as the evidence has become more clear and the data has become more clearly understood, I think is a testament to his method, and to the rigor behind his methodological approach to this. This is not perfect, of course. Skrenuk points that out in the article, and thank you for sharing that with me, by the way. Skrenuk points this out in the article that he wrote on this, right?
Yeah.
But like credit where credit is due. If we're going to pick a direction to go, I mean, I'm sticking with the guy who already has established falsifiability built into his model, and who has already made calculated changes within his own appraisal of the material on the basis of how these have been falsified. As opposed to the model where we have an a priori starting point based on this intuition. And everything circulates around that, and we adjust the definitions of that as we move forward. So, yeah.
So I find it very interesting. I'm not convinced by it, but it's a good read. This was a good visual presentation of it. Like it's I want to toss these ideas around and see where I come out on the other side. So thanks for weighing in. Thank you to you both for giving expert opinions on this, because obviously I have some blind spots.
No, this
I don't think you could call mine expert, but it's cool that you let me ramble.
Definitely a valid perspective.
Yeah. So maybe. So I think we'll probably start to wrap things up here. If there are questions or comments that we didn't get to, we should probably bring some of those up. And I have some things that I'd like to announce for the channel as well. Couple things important coming up. So I will probably I'm revamping the Hebrew reading stream finally. Since Josh abandoned us a couple of months ago, we can no longer call it Kiryat Brit with Drs. Josh and Kipp. So
dare he have a family and teaching obligations?
Yeah, it's true. I always get very sensitive when people make those choices ahead of my shit. It's very it gets me here. So but because of that, because of Josh's selfish choices, I actually, we debuted last night for the first time Kiryat Brit with Dr. Kipp and Friends.
Proving
I
that
had
you do in
Jordan.
fact have friends.
I have some. I have a
Plural.
few. So yes. So I have a collection of lovely people who are have agreed to come on periodically and regularly to read Hebrew with me on Thursday nights, including Vish, uh, uh, Dr. Dan McClellan, Dr. Jordan Jones from Bible and Archaeology, Rabbi Chana, the Rebel Rabbi, that Rebel Rabbi, Justin from Deconstruction Zone, Justin Sledge, Dr. Justin Sledge from Esoterica has agreed to come on and read with me. I'll probably be just adding people. I spoke to some of my colleagues, including Dr. Carmen Palmer from Stetson University in Florida, who has said that she'd be interesting in
Justin
coming and
Sledge
reading Hebrew.
let me give him a cross Bible demo in SBL.
Sweet.
Really?
He stood for the whole
That's
thing,
awesome.
and he said for my Hebrew font problem, he was like, use, what do you say, Carta, or there was a specific Hebrew font that he
okay.
recommended.
Nice. Well, hopefully that makes it easier on my eyes.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. So so that's in the process of change, but I may actually in the new year I'm toying with the idea of just moving to every Thursday night instead of every second Thursday night for the Hebrew reading stream. I enjoy it. The people who do tune in seem to enjoy it quite a bit. So so that's happening. I meant to make this announcement last week and it slipped my mind, but I was in conversation with Doctors Dan McClellan, Joshua Bowen, Matthew Monger, some other people when I was at SBL, and the plan is right now to bring the Diablo critics back, and that will happen probably in the spring. I think we're at best case scenario will be good to relaunch in March or April is my hope. Hopeful maybe it gets pushed back to May, but in 2026 the Diablo critics will be coming back. We're going to be shifting up the format for that a little bit, and I will be adding some more people to the roster for that show as well. So that's all stuff that's happening and I'm excited about. And then I guess I should also say that I have recorded the last audio file for the book, and we'll be editing that over the weekend. So look for the audio book to be available hopefully before Christmas. Certainly within the next week. I think we can get everything sorted out for that. So finally, I'm excited about that. Finally, drawing to a close here. And was there something else that I wanted to announce in that regard? I don't think so. I think that's it. So yeah, Stephen, thanks for coming and hanging out and watching and sharing this video with me and watching at least the first half with us, and for sharing with us about cross Bible. Everybody make sure that you make use of the promo code and go sign up. But yeah, anything you wanna finish up with?
I'll drop one last Discord link in case people missed the first couple of times that I did it earlier. And yeah, I mean, thank you to everybody who's jumping in and getting on the platform. Like I said, thanks to Disciple Dojo, hundreds of people are doing it on just the free version. The free version is a good starting point. If you can afford the monthly subscription, great. You unlock a lot of cool features. If not, just get on it. Just start using it. Get on Discord. Let me know if things aren't working so I can fix them. Shout out to my friends at Biblingo. I'm wearing a Biblingo shirt. Cross Bible 10 is a 10% discount if you want to learn Hebrew or Greek on Biblingo. Because at SBL, those guys like really saved me. Like they gave me carpet tiles.
Yeah, they did.
The venue was forcing me to like $500 buy carpet. You have until noon to buy carpet. And I was like, how can I buy carpet by noon? I got to like go somewhere. And I was right next to Biblingo, and they were just like, here, just take our carpet tiles. Just like, So yeah, I'm just indebted to everybody around me, Biblingo, the Disciple Dojo, you, Kipp, like just everybody that has recognized like the hard work that I've been putting into this for years and has lifted me up and like
dude.
helped, expose it to people. Like, thank you. Just thank you to everybody.
Sorry, you did remind me of the last thing, and now it becomes awkward because I there is a link now available where you can sign up for my new Introduction to Biblical Hebrew course beginning in January at Digital Hammurabi. On the courses page there should be a sign up link there. So I'll be starting in the 3rd week of January. If anybody's interested in learning biblical Hebrew.
Right around my birthday. Hey.
Yay.
Which day of the week is it?
That's true. It's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday evening.
It's that same 6 p.m. slot?
It's the same 6 p.m., 5 p.m. slot.
5 p.m. slot, yeah. That's a tough one.
Yeah, but I know it is. It's hard to find something that works for everybody.
When I did it, I was in the back seat of the car the whole time.
You were.
I was like... Because I just happened to be in the car at that time every Tuesday.
Yeah. So that was fun, actually, when you showed up in the back seat of the car every week. So, yeah. No, Simone, you'd have to ask Dr. Josh about when the next Akkadian class is going to be. Probably not for a little while because he's just finished the first semester, and I believe he's got 2 semesters to go. So I would guess like closer to the summer. So, yeah. But yeah, thanks for coming and sharing with us, Stephen.
Everybody like and subscribe this this live stream, like and subscribe this one, and then if you can hop over to the Cross Bible one, if you could drop a like on mine.
Yes, please do that.
Cross Bible, what is it? The simulcast stream.
Yes, the simulcast.
Yeah, I really appreciate the support also on the channel. Let's make sure you subscribe.
Do you remember the feedback that I gave you within the last couple weeks about it?
Yeah, that branding.
Wouldn't you know it?
Until I saw the Christian branding. Yeah, I mean it's a cross-reference Bible. The suggestion was that I go and I get a brand new trademark for cross-reference and drop the word Bible. That would fix it. I don't know. Look, it is a Christian organization. It's a Christian platform. It includes the New Testament and Old Testament, and I do realize that alienates a certain market segment, and I'm I not apologizing for it. I'm just explaining why that is. It's just
we'll take our Google.
That is my market. It is a Christian platform.
Do you still teach Greek?
Yes,
Stephen?
Yes. I'm starting a new. I actually have a new cohort of Greek students every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. So people can message me through the website to jump in there. I teach modern Greek. I teach ancient Greek through modern Greek. So I actually communicate with my students in modern Greek, but we learn biblical Greek through the modern Greek lens. It's my own unique approach. I know a lot of people think it sounds crazy, but if you jump into a class, I usually do like a free session to start out, and people see very, very quickly like, oh, wow, this is like learning to, drive an automatic transmission before getting in a stick shift and getting into an accident, right? It's just, wow. It's the easy way, So if you're interested in trying that approach and using like modern Greek pronunciation and just using the communicative method where you use all 4 quadrants, it's reading, writing, speaking, and listening. All of those go into language acquisition, in my opinion. So,
yes,
that's my approach.
That's awesome. So, if you guys are interested in learning Greek, Stephen's a great guy to learn from. So, I would encourage you to make use of that resource.
Yes, I am a Christian, but I engage in interfaith dialogue, and a lot of people get very angry at me for that. But this is what I do.
You're sitting down with heretics.
This channel is not interested in what your religion is. We're all about the text here. So
Just
you
come
know,
show up and chill out and
yep.
learn stuff.
Exactly.
I just
So,
don't clutch pearls. I don't have pearls
Yeah.
to clutch. It's just
not
I'm
every
just kinda...
and I mean, importantly, I think a lot of people just because it's so visible and people have become so damaged by certain forms of fundamentalist evangelical Christianity in the United States. It's a big world, and there are hundreds, thousands of Christian communities that are not that. And many there there are many churches, many places you can go where I just said curl clutching, didn't I? Pearl clutching is just not a thing when
I
it
come from
comes
that
to...
background. I come from the conservative, like Southern Baptist Bible Belt. Like that was how I was raised. But I spent a lot of time in Russia and Greece and like Orthodox countries, and so I just was forced to kind of like open my mind because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, there's like a whole half of the world with a completely different perspective on
Yup.
things, and most people just that come from where I come from, they don't leave. They just stay there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like a lot of the people that I used to work for would be like, well, I mean, they're Christians, but I mean, they're just like not the right ones because of reasons. And I'm like, man, you need to stop being so arrogant. That's crazy. Like, put on your big boy pants. There's 2 billion plus Christians, and they're not all like you. So you may want to learn how to cope with that. We have super
right.
chat. I want to read.
Let's see it.
From
Thank you.
Gandalf the Black for £10. His avatar is Clippy. Hi, Kipp and Vish. Want to thank you for helping me appreciate the Bible in a new way. I deconstructed 2 years ago after a semester of Assyriology, and good Bible scholarship was just what I needed.
Thank you so much, Gandalf. I
Heck
really
yeah.
appreciate that. That's what we're here for.
Learning is fun and
just
awesome.
to make this fascinating collection of texts as accessible as we possibly can. So in a responsible way. So I think we do need to hop off here. Vish and I are going to be on Dapra's channel tomorrow. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we are. Yeah. So
Yes.
I think yes. So you can see us there. Anything coming up, Stephen?
I'm trying to do more consistent, regular live streams. So I'll do my Saturday morning is going to be my Greek class. So people are welcome to message me if they want to try that out. And then I'll probably be doing regular like Saturday afternoon live streams. So just make sure you're subscribed. But I have two paths. It's like you could do the YouTube subscription, the website subscription, or both. You know, like I have a lot of offerings for people.
This is another thing is I highly recommend that people, especially Christians who engage with their texts on a regular basis, I highly recommend they learn Greek because then you can just read for yourself and you don't have to rely on other people to tell you what it says or to even translate it for you. You can just do that yourself in your living room or wherever.
Exactly.
It's true.
It's very liberating.
Looking at you, Michael Jones. That's another story for another day.
Jim Bro who didn't speak Akkadian and took it as an insult that he didn't know. He couldn't read the text that had the Epkalu in them. It's like,
yeah,
guy.
That's such a strange. I have such mixed feelings about that. Sorry, that's yeah. Nobody knows what we're talking about, but anyways,
okay,
we got to go. So thanks everyone. Thanks again, Stephen. I guess it's Friday night, so I hope everyone has a great weekend. And I should have this ready at the outset, and I never do. So but I've got an outro here. So take care everyone. Stay safe, be good, and hot tikva.